George Carlin started his professional career in radio in 1956 at the age of 19. In the 60s, he spent most of his time honing his style at small clubs with characters like the hippy-dippy weatherman. With appearances on television shows like Johnny Carson's Tonight Show and Ed Sullivan, Carlin became a household name. In the 70s, he assumed the irreverent and satirical persona for which he is best known and which has garnered him 2 Grammys for Best Spoken Word Comedy Album. He returns to his native New York for an HBO comedy special, and we are pleased to have him here. Welcome back.
And I'm pleased to be here. Thank you, John.
Number 9 on HBO.
My 9th stand-up show for HBO, yes.
And this one is live. Huh?
Well, I've done 2 previous ones live. No. The one in '92 of Madison Square Garden was a live show, and one of the earlier ones was live.
You said to me as we sat down that sort of you just learned how to put this whole thing together.
How to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
6 or 7 years ago,
it happened. I only noticed it in retrospect, so I can't really date it.
Yeah.
But in the last 7 to 8 years, I began to develop a different comic voice and a different perspective. You know, stand-up comedy is a low art. It's a vulgar art. It's an art of the people. It's not.
But it's an art.
But it is an art. It has to do with interpreting the world as you see it, and then writing something, and then delivering it verbally. And I found a very liberating position for myself as an artist. And that was, I sort of gave up on the human race and gave up on the American dream and culture and nation, and decided that I didn't care about the outcome. And that gave me a lot of freedom from a kind of distant platform to be sort of amused, to watch the whole thing with a combination of wonder and pity, and try to put that into words.
Not caring about the outcome. What do you mean by that?
Not having an emotional stake in whether this experiment with human beings works. I really don't care. I love people as I meet them one by one. People are just wonderful as individuals. You see the whole universe in their eyes if you look carefully. But as soon as they begin to group, as soon as they begin to clot, when there are 5 of them or 10, or even groups as small as 2, they begin to change. They sacrifice the beauty of the individual for the sake of the group. I decided it was all under the control of groups now, whether it's business, religion, political people, or what, and I would distance myself from wishing for a good outcome. Let it do what it's going to do, and I'll enjoy it as an entertainment.
And I'll reflect on what it is on its own.
And I'll enjoy it for the entertainment. There's a little bit of a sick part in this, too. I root for the big comet. I root for the big asteroid to come and make things right. That's the way I put it.
Stir things up.
Yes, to get us back where we were before the first one came and knocked out these dinosaurs and let the ferrets grow up.
We're talking about comets on this show tonight.
I know it. And I'm rooting for that big one to come right through that hole in the ozone layer because I want to see it on CNN. See, I'm here for the entertainment, Charlie. I am. Philosophers say, why are we here? I know I am here.
For the entertainment.
The show. Bring it on. I want to see the circus.
But how does this affect your performance and what you bring to stand-up?
Well, I've seen a lot of comedians, we've all seen a lot of comedians who seem to have a political bent in their work. And always implicit in the work is some positive outcome, that this is all going to work. If only we do this, if only we pass that bill, if only we elect him, if only we do that. It's not true. It's circling the drain time for humans. I believe this. I honestly believe this. Not just as a comedian, he thinks that. He likes to say that. I believe it. And when you say to yourself, I don't care what happens, it just gives you a broader perspective for the art, for the words to emerge, to not care. That's what happened in that '92 show. That's why I could say the planet is fine, the people are... Because the planet will outlast us. It will be here, and it will be fine.
Has the subject matter changed?
Well, you're still stuck with what's going on, but I don't like topical... I don't like political humor. I don't mention politicians. In fact, I defend them in this particular show. Everyone is on their... Everyone is always making things...
Politicians are bad.
I defend them and blame it on the people. This is where it belongs.
You get what you deserve?
Yes, you get what you deserve, and you deserve what you get. And I have a slogan, the public sucks. And it works nicely, and people accept it. Not very enthusiastically, but they understand that it says we the people in that preamble. It doesn't say them the thises and those the thatses. It says, hey.
We got on this boat.
And people who hate government are involved in a form of suicide because government is self-government. And if you hate the government, you hate yourself. And it's the same with the war against nature that mankind goes through. So I just said to myself, it's not going to get better, not in my lifetime. Let me enjoy this and get a little perverse about my commentary on it. I open
what does perverse mean, though?
Well, to look for where the people think the line is. The people have values, that these things, these amorphous things they call values, that they bring to the seat in the theater when they sit down. And I like to find out where their line may be and deliberately cross it disturb them a little, make them uncomfortable, and then bring them with me across the line and make them glad they came. That's what I do. I'm an entertainer. I'm not a doomsayer. I'm not here to preach. I don't do political tracts, but I do entertain. I do a lot of jokes, but I want you to feel a little in danger along the way.
And so people who go to hear you ought to go in with the sure knowledge they'll feel a little endangered when they sit down.
Well,
or they watch the television.
It doesn't matter if they know it going in, as long as it happens when they're there. I just want them, because, you know, what happened about, you know, we talked about this little change of mind, whatever it is, this evolution, this latest thing.
When you got it together.
Yes, eventually, ultimately for myself. You know, you have to be somewhat of an egotist to stand up all your life and say, listen to me, please pay attention. Even in school, when you do this in school, you're looking for attention. And that's fine. I can live with that about myself. But if I'm going to call attention to myself, I want to show them something a little different from time to time. I want to find a voice that isn't like all the others. I just never want to be like all the other people. I just hate these. I could never do a Newt Gingrich joke or an O.J. Simpson joke or anything, because you sound like all the other people. And I just want to, you know, anybody who stands up wants to be different. Hey, look at me, guys. So I'm always looking for things I can believe in that challenge them a little.
How do you prepare the material? I mean, you write it down, you work it out, you try this and try that and winnow it down?
I'm extremely anal, so I have 35 years of notes. Some of them are still in hard copy. They're actual pencil-written notes. A lot of things are on discs now. But I've kept my files over the years, and I'm very familiar with them. And I think most writers or any artist would tell you that a lot of the work goes on subconsciously. If you're thoroughly familiar with your raw material, a lot of the synthesis goes on without you even knowing it, so that when you sit down to apply the thought, some of these things come rushing forward that you never heard before, but they're part of you. So I pay attention to my files. I have attitudes, and I save things according to my attitudes, write something out, revise it about 20 times before I ever put it on stage. And I do it in my real shows. I don't go somewhere and try it out in a club. I do it for the people it's intended for, and it grows from there. And it's usually very close to completion by the time I put it on stage.
How much difference, once you have it and once you're good, does delivery make from night to night?
It's everything.
The pause, the inflection,
the energy,
the look,
Yes. That is the wonderful thing about the stand-up art, if we can use that term. It is one of the few, it's the only one I know of, the only art form where the intended receiver of the art is present at the delivery, and the art form can be altered according to their appreciation of it as you go. Now, in my case, I don't change the words a lot, but they give me signals that gives me license to do more with my body, to do more with my face and my voice. So, except for a jazz musician who is also affected by his audience in an improv, everyone else is separated from their audience by time or space, or by an arrangement, or a key, or a tempo. Not the comedian. He gets to do this according to how they appreciate him, and that's.
Do we know? I mean, how far back does this art form go? The stand-up before a collection of people saying, "I'm here to entertain you."
I have often
nothing more than my voice.
I have often said. When people talk about, well, you know, you may not like the system and everything, but you make money from this and you're in business and all that. And sure, but I say, but you know, if I were forced to do this for free, I would. If it were caveman days and I went from cave to cave, telling my little stories in exchange for a hunk of meat, I would do it. And if they said no meat tonight, I would still do the show. And I think storytellers and shamans and oral traditionalists from primitive cultures probably are the forebears, the forerunners, I guess, of this art. And then monologists, although they didn't interact as much with their audience, the famous monologists of vaudeville and the Chautauqua circuit.
Bob Hope was a hero of yours.
Bob Hope
read that somewhere. I don't know if he was...
Bob Hope in the movies. I never cared for his television political monologue stuff.
Why? Because it was too pat, too...
Yeah, it was filtered through a commercial system. We're selling trucks and tires here, folks, so we're going to filter things for you. But the movies never had that. At least it wasn't very visible. And I adored Danny Kaye. And now think of me in the 40s. I'm about 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And they're in their primes in the movies. And Bob Hope in the movies... Red Skelton in the movies and Danny Kaye in the movies
were what?
Well, they were something because movies were larger than life. We didn't have television yet. It was a few years away. Radio was a big thing. But the movie, you sat there and the screen was so big and the theater was so big and it was this wonderful experience. And I said, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. And I used to write to Sylvia Fine to try to get Danny Kaye's lyrics. I never got an answer. I didn't know they were married. And I said, dear Miss Fine, please send me Get Giddle. I want to learn this and do it at school and stuff. And I just loved the verbal facility. I knew, I said, this is something I want, I can do. And I didn't know what form mine would take, but I knew I could stand up.
How about the Marx Brothers?
Absolutely. Because of the chaos. Because they kicked over every bit of order. And the wonderful thing, they could go through a hotel lobby, lighting a couch on fire, shooting the chandelier down, and the people only sort of looked slightly annoyed. No one panicked. No one called the police for this behavior. I loved that. Spike Jones on records, again, taking something ostensibly beautiful, breaking it down and destroying it in a way and making something else out of it. Making chaos out of order and then order out of chaos.
But when you knew you wanted to do this, was it any of the people I've just mentioned, or was it someone else that sort of spoke to you and you said, damn it, that's what I want to do?
Well, it came first, I think, before I saw or heard any of them. My mother and father were very verbally gifted. I didn't know my father, but he was a top advertising salesman. He was the national advertising manager of the New York Sun, and before that, the New York Post, when it was a broadsheet. My mother was an executive secretary in advertising all her life. They were very funny. And I inherited that. And my mother used to get me to imitate people. Do Mae West. I didn't know Mae West, but I knew how to imitate her. Come up and see me. I did Johnny the Philip Morris Midget, and one day I said something to my mother. This was mimicry, pure imitations. But one day I said something to my mother, funny, and I knew the difference between her real laugh and her social laugh. And I said something and I heard her real laugh. She really laughed at something I thought of in my head. And I thought, wow. And it just gave me a feeling of power. I don't remember what the thing was, but I knew I had made it up.
But you can feel the same thing today.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
It's
the capacity to know that an audience, whether you're making a speech or doing stand-up, that you can just feel them responding. I mean, it's almost like
of course, the comic
kinetic.
has the laughter as proof every 5 to 10 or 15 seconds. And to know not only that, but Arthur Kessler said in The Act of Creation that sometimes the jester can traverse, that's probably the word I want, traverse the triptych. And if the jester says something funny, well, he's a jester. If he says it in marvelous language, that we say, oh, isn't that a nice way to put that? Then he's a bit of a poet. And if there's an underlying idea underneath the well-put, funny line, if there's a bit of a philosophy in it, he becomes something else again, a philosopher. Now, one doesn't sit down and attempt to do that with everything he writes, but to know that that's part of the package, to know that you can do these three things in varying degrees.
At this stage in your life, I mean, where are you in terms of what you want to do? You've learned this craft.
Yes.
You've got the perspective that you know you're doing it the way you want to do it. Is there some mountain that's still left to climb, or is it just simply sort of?
No, I have some. There are two things. I'd love to continue exactly what I'm doing and broaden the vision, broaden the horizon, and just see more and say more, and that'll happen.
Be smarter, more insightful.
Just find better synthesis to find that this idea goes with that one, and I never suspected it, and then to make something out of it that's bigger than the two of them. But
the other mountain.
The next HBO show. This is 1996. For 1999, I expect will be a Broadway show. I don't know how long it will run. We'll attempt to do it for a month or so, you know, and see what happens. You can't get too far ahead of yourself. But I want to include a little production. I want to include some movement. I don't want to forget who I am. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to run from my strength. But a little movement on stage, some characters, a hat for this character, a scarf for another, my mother. I want to do my mother on stage. It'll be semi-pseudo-autobiographical with a little bit of this in it, too, because I think I have things that I want people to hear. I don't know if they ought to, but I think I'd like to hear myself say them. And I think that is what I would like to do with this verbal thing next.
Carlin live on Broadway for HBO in '99.
Very possibly. I hope so.
This is the 9th HBO special. HBO has given you, it's meant everything to who you are.
It's been my lifeline.
Your lifeline.
Michael Fuchs in particular.
Michael, by opening HBO up to comedy and giving you this opportunity, in a sense, has kept an audience out there in touch with where you were
That's
and
right.
what you were doing.
I had 4 gold albums in the early 70s, so that was over $1 million in sales, each one of them, and they were wonderful. And then I had 2 or 3 after that weren't quite. You're never the hot guy in town forever. You have to understand when you're not the new hot guy anymore. And that period came, and that's when HBO came along. And it was my way to have a mass audience. I could have traveled for years doing these theaters, doing whatever they were, but I would only reach people 1,000 at a time. HBO, every 2 years on the average for me, gave me a mass audience, and their subscriptions grew over the years so that the audience was bigger and bigger. And it gave me a presence in the national mind, if you will. I don't mean to be too grand about this, but in the minds of people who appreciate comedy or entertainment in general, it gave me a presence. And the wonderful thing is that they don't interrupt you. You have a full hour to just go, and there's no censorship.
George Carlin, live from the Beacon Theater, March 30th. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you tomorrow night. Chris Darden will be here. We'll talk about the Simpson trial, about his own tribulations. See you then. George Clooney has become one of the most sought-after actors in Hollywood. He was born in Kentucky to a show business family that includes his father, a newscaster, his mother, a beauty queen, and his aunt, a legendary singer. At the age of 21, he moved to Hollywood to make his own mark. For the next decade, he found modest success appearing in numerous failed pilots and some marginal sitcoms. But in 1994, it was his role as Doug Ross on ER that made him a household name. Last year, after fulfilling his 5-year contract, he left the show and has refocused his film career, which has already included such hits as The Peacemaker, Out of Sight, and Three Kings. Here's a brief look.
I prefer to think of myself as a family man, and that's what we all are here, whether we like it or not. We are a family. I'm the father.
Maggie, when you grow up and you are incredibly beautiful and intelligent and possess a certain sweetness it's like a distant promise to the brave, to the worthy, can you please not beat to a pulp every miserable bastard who comes your way just because you can? You just not do that?
Okay, Daddy.
$1 million.
$2 million.
You don't have it. $3 million.
I'll borrow it from you. $4 million.
$5 million.
That's a utility belt, not a money belt. $6 million.
$7 million. Never leave the cave without it.
You moved from Lawrence Livermore to the White House. So, first you build the bombs to blow up the entire world, and now you want to save it. Make up your mind. Which is it going to be?
Well, I believe this week we're saving it.
It's like seeing someone for the first time. Like you could be passing on the street, and you look at each other, and for a few seconds there's this kind of a recognition. Like you both know something. The next moment the person's gone. And it's too late to do anything about it.
I don't kill people that I don't have to, and I don't rape women. What you are doing is not how it's done. Do you understand that? Do you just say f***ing yes? Say yes, Seth, I understand. Yes, God bless America, and God bless a free Iraq.
His latest film, The Perfect Storm, promises to be one of the summer's biggest blockbusters. I'm very pleased to have at this table for the first time, George Clooney.
Thank you, John.
Pleasure to have you here.
It's good to be here.
Is this a role that you wanted? Is this a movie you wanted to make? Did you read this book and say, man, I hope there's something there for me?
Read the book before Warner Brothers had the rights to it, and I thought it was great. The truth is I didn't really know what I could play in it because unless you sort of pay close attention, most storybook captains retire at 38 years old. And my knowledge of fishing and boating would be, you know, Captain Queeg or someone, and these guys are all 50 years old, and I thought I was too young to play the role. And then bit by bit, it started, you know, we started talking. I started talking with Wolfgang, and he said, do you want to play the captain? And I said, yeah, you might be too young for it. He goes, you might be too old for it. I'll do it then.
The story goes, too, that you recommended.
Mark. Well, we had just done Three Kings. Yeah. It was in the can. They were editing it. And we thought we'd done a pretty good film. We knew we'd done something unique. Yeah. And they saw a rough cut of it, and they really liked it. They were really proud of it. And Terry Semel and Lorenzo called me, the guys who were the heads of Warner Brothers. Terry at the time, and Lorenzo, who's now the president of the film company. And he called me up and said, we think that we've done one of the best films we've done in a decade with Three Kings. And I said, so you like Mark in it? And they go, yeah, because I loved working with him. And I said, well, I'm going to do I'm going to do The Perfect Storm, and the guy who's perfect for it, you're not really considering right now. And I said, that's Mark. And they said, well, we don't know about the movie, how it'll do. And I said, well, if you think you've got a good movie and you think we work well together, then I think you got to sort of put your money where your mouth is, because there is no one better for the part. I mean, if we hadn't done Three Kings, he would have been the first guy considered for the role. So they said, okay, let's do it. And they did it, which I think is a gamble on their part.
Why is he perfect for this role? Because there was another story that you once were considered for that role, too.
I wasn't considered for that role. There was a period of time that they were talking to Mel Gibson about the role that I played. Yeah. Mel couldn't do it, and because of that, they offered me this role. When Mel was thinking about doing it, or was at least just discussing doing it with them, I said I'd love to play Bobby then to Mel. And I just wanted to work with Mel, to be quite honest. And so when I got the role, this was, easily the right role for me, the right part for me to play. But Mark was perfect for it. He's from Dorchester, Massachusetts. He's a blue-collar kid. He grew up that way, and that's what this guy is. It's not an easy thing to fake. It's not easy to, especially young actors, because a lot of times the danger you do is you try to do all the work, and what ends up happening is it looks like acting. Mark, you never catch Mark acting, which is really good. My Aunt Rosemary is a very successful singer. Right. She can't hold a note as long as she could in 1950, and she can't hit the notes she could in 1950, and she's a much, much better singer. And I said, why are you a better singer now? And she says, because I don't have to prove I can sing anymore. And that's sort of the thing you get. A lot of times you'll learn that with age. Mark seems to have an uncanny knack for it.
When did you reach that point?
I don't know that I have. I'm learning it. It's a sort of ongoing process with me. I find that I'm better in well-written scripts. Everyone is, but I seem to be helped considerably with a well-written script and a good director and good actors around. So that's.
Yeah, but I know a little bit about you, and my sense is that after Batman, you said, "Wait a minute, right. I'm an actor. Mm-hmm. What I want to do is act with good people, mm-hmm. good directors, and good scripts. That's what I wanted to be. I don't want to do something."
I had to relearn how to, I learned it in television. My whole life was growing up was in television, and I learned it bit by bit. First you do projects that are vehicles, and then first you get jobs. I mean, there's no apologies for people say, why did you do Return of the Killer Tomatoes? Well, I got the job.
Exactly.
I jumped up and down and danced when I got the job.
I had to pay the rent. I had to buy the food.
Believe me, if I pushed the phone machine and they'd say, you got Ishtar, you would have seen me dancing around the table.
Ishtar! I'll be at the desert.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be singing. But after that, you make decisions, and the decisions first become about your career. And that's always sort of a dumb way to do it. Yeah. You can't plot things out. If you do, you're going to make huge mistakes. And I did that in television. And somewhere along the way, I decided that I had to pay more attention to the scripts in television. And the minute I did that, I got ER. And so I forgot that again, or had to relearn it again in film. So I took jobs because I got them. And then I took jobs because they seemed like the right move. And the truth of the matter is every one of those jobs led me to the place I am right now. So in a weird way, they were the right move. In retrospect, you look at a film like Batman, and you go, well, I probably wasn't the right guy for the job, and probably wasn't very good in the role, and it certainly wasn't a very good film. But it also enabled me to wait then for films like Out of Sight.
Because you made a couple of bucks.
Yeah, and more than that, as much as people rag on that film, it made $250 million at the box office between here and foreign.
You'd take that for Perfect Storm, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah. Because when you do a tent-pole movie like this, it's required to make a lot of money, but it's also required, you need to do a film like this that keeps the studio running for all the other little films, because there's so many ancillary ways of making money in a film like this.
Yeah, that used to be sort of the studio mindset, I assume, didn't it? We can get a couple of big ones. That'll give us the luxury to lose.
Yes,
to take chances
because when you do a smaller film, and now a smaller film is a 40,
yeah,
45, $50 million film, but when you do a smaller film, the chances of you having a Blair Witch Project, which is of course the freak of all freaks because they spent no money and it made hundreds of millions of dollars. But if you have a smaller film, the chances of it making a lot of money are really slim. It'll make some money because your risk is low. So sometimes you have to spend a lot of money and take a risk on making some money.
Is there a risk here because, A, we know what happens to all the characters? Is there a risk here because it's a book? The
risks are obvious. The risks are you're telling a story in an old-fashioned way, which is it's not a long movie. For summer fare, it's a very short film, in fact, which is good. But it's old-fashioned storytelling. You set the characters up. We don't start. After Indiana Jones came out, there became this thing, in Hollywood action films where you're going to start the movie with a bang, and it's going to start with these sort of big action sequences, and then you learn about the characters, and then you keep it going. Before that, it was you learn about the characters, and then you put them in jeopardy. That's sort of what we do here. We learn about the characters, we put them in jeopardy. Much tougher. It relies on a little bit of patience with the audience. The payoff is good. It's what we tried to do with Failsafe as well when we did the live show we did. Was you have to be able to sit still for for 25, 30, 35 minutes and get the story. And once you do, the payoff is so much better.
You produced Failsafe. I want to come to that in a moment. Let me go take Perfect Storm because I want to show some clips here. Tell me who your character is, and tell me about getting ready for the role.
Well, I play. These are real people. These people that live, and so I'm
based on the great book by
based on Sebastian Junger's book, and our responsibilities are great because we have a responsibility to these families and to these men's names and also to Sebastian Junger, who wrote the book. So we had great responsibility in not misrepresenting it, not making it a big Hollywood summer blockbuster without represening the characters. That's
so you couldn't take too much literary license with the book that was already there, out of a sense of integrity to him as well as...
Sure, and you got to... These are real people. Sometimes in a script, while you're on the set, you'll go, well, it would really fix things if the ex-wife was a jerk. That'll fix the problem here. You need something to drive him to the sea. Well, let's make the ex-wife a jerk. And the truth is that ex-wife lives. And she lives in that town. And in doing that, just a literary license in doing that, you hurt people. And that's not fair because these people went through a lot of tragedy along the way. So there's other kinds of responsibility. And this guy, what I didn't know, which I learned from the book a little bit and learned from the movie, is this profession. Didn't know how dangerous it was. Didn't know anything about what being a sword fisherman is and how dangerous it is when they go out there. There's a lot of ways to get killed. I didn't know that. I grew up in Kentucky, and I cut tobacco for a living.
To North Carolina.
In North Carolina.
And it's the same thing. I mean, there's no danger from the sea where I was living.
Yeah, you're not going to get killed from it. So.
I mean, or living in a mine. I mean, to go to West Virginia. I remember as an early reporter covering a mine disaster one night. We took a little plane and went into West Virginia, and it turned out that I found out in the early morning hours, and the families all hovered around, waiting for the bodies to come up.
Yeah.
And they don't know what happened, and they all live in the community. And they all pay a price because of lung disease and other things, But it's a community. It's what they know. It's what they do. And you can't imagine what it's like. And mine disasters happen. So it's like something they live with.
It is.
People who live by the sea.
Well, especially like you go to a town like Gloucester, and people would say, well, why did they do this, and are they heroes? And you go, well, I think everyone's a hero in the fact that they do what it is their community basically has made its living doing. And
it's what they know.
It's what they know, and what their father knew and their grandfather. And they go to work every day, and the trade that their town lives off of is fishing. So yes, they're absolutely heroic, but it's heroic in the kind of heroics that I like, which is you just get up and go to work. It's not, I'm going to go out there because I know I'm risking my life.
And they don't think about that.
No,
they say
it's not an issue.
I go out there because I'm a fisherman. That's
Because I
what
got to make
am.
a living.
And I got to make a living.
And this is how I make it.
You know, and I'll take this chance. I'll go further than I've ever gone, or
Right.
normally go, because I know if I go there, or at least I believe there's a chance.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what we tried to do in this, because we don't know what really happened at the end.
Which is the extraordinary thing about the book.
That's the extraordinary thing, because he gave me like 5 or 6 ways it could have happened.
Yeah.
What we do know were these things. We knew that they had a hold full of fish for the first time in a long time, and that they were, you know, in need of that
It's a good
financially.
haul. Yeah.
A good haul. We know that their ice machine was broken and their radio was down, and we know that they had a storm between them and Gloucester. Those are the things we know. The question is, you know, whose decision was it? But the truth is, 999 times out of 1,000, even coming through a storm like that, you're going to make it. I mean, it's a freak that storm was that big. So
It was, in fact, the perfect storm.
It was the perfect storm, and so our job was to show that these decisions weren't made from out of stupidity, but out of necessity.
Let me show a moment. There are a couple of things I just want to get before my audience here. This is where Captain Linda Greenlaw tells Billy that she doesn't find the romance in fishing in the same way he does. Roll tape.
But you got it, Captain Greenlaw. You do, believe me. I see them come and go. The day I laid eyes on you, I said to myself, she's going to be a good one. You can't be good unless you love it.
You and I were talking during this. It is this notion of how lucky I am, how lucky you are, and in a sense, how lucky this man was. Notwithstanding how hard it was, notwithstanding the danger.
Right.
He did something he loved. Yeah.
Well, that's sort of the seduction of this. There are differences between, you know, you and I and Billy Tyne's character. This may not necessarily be Billy Tyne, but this character in general is a man who has not succeeded in anything except this profession, and now this profession is being taken away from him, which causes a real panic. We're not in that position right now. It's early.
No. You think, you have this great line, and someday I know I'll end up on the Hollywood Squares, not even in the center box.
Not even center box. Well, you know, or it's like actors sometimes forget, if they don't pay attention, watch Ralph Edwards, watch This Is Your Life, and it's everybody, you know, you'll see Harold Lloyd sitting there, you know, with his hand like this, sitting like this, and Ralph is going, "You owned all the studios, everybody loved you," and then tragedy struck.
then it was over.
Then the drinking started. And it's every actor, every star.
And
So
here is your doctor.
Right, exactly.
Been good to you for the last 10 years.
And they wipe the drool off of your face. We're like, I used to own the studio.
I know. All right, take a look at this scene. This is a scene, set this up for me, where the ice machine breaks on the boat. Well, and Billy's got to make the decision.
Well, this is the critical sort of, this is what drives us back through, towards Gloucester and through the storm, which is, we have, the most precious thing you can have on a fishing boat is ice, because the fish, if they spoil at all, the fresher the fish, the more money you get for the fish. If they spoil at all, all of your work is for naught, and it's very expensive. You put out a lot of money to go fishing. So when the ice machine breaks, that causes a great deal of panic.
Roll tape. Here it is.
The ice machine's had it. It's dead.
Check the evaporator.
Yeah.
Freon?
Plenty, but nowhere to flow.
Use a little spit and glue, damn it.
I did. She's fried, Skip. I told Brown get us a new one, but he goes for another overhaul.
Suggesting that the idea of braving the storm was unanimous.
Yes, that was, you know, that was in the original script, actually. It was all his decision. Yeah. And it made him a little bit like, it was a little like the Caine Mutiny in a sense. Yeah. And our thought again was, let's not make this out of stubbornness or stupidity or cruelty. Let's make it out of a unanimous decision. And this becomes a unanimous decision, which is, let's, you know, the truth is, you and I would make the exact same decision, which is, well, you can have money or you cannot have money, and you need the money.
We go for it. We'll take the risk. And the truth is, as you said earlier, most of the time you're going to make it.
Most of the time. I mean, you know, the thought is...
Perfect storm is the exception.
It's the exception, yeah.
Take a look at this. This is, just to give you a sense of how difficult it is to make a movie like this. We'll talk a little bit about this before we move on to other things. This is when they're trying to steer the movie away from a giant wave. Here it is. Now, how was it to film this?
Wet, mostly.
For 6 months.
Just
wet,
and you know it's funny. You get hit with everything. You know they have these things called water cannons, and then they have a dump tank. Now a dump tank is basically a swimming pool set up above the boat, and then a slide, and they would release it, and it would just if you weren't bolted in, we have cables bolting us in. If you weren't bolted in, it would knock you off the boat, and it would recycle every 15 seconds and just fill that thing up as quick as it could of water and do it again. And we were just getting hammered for about 6 months, and you know it's cold and wet. It's miserable.
Yeah. Are you at a place where you want to take some time off, or are you speeding ahead?
Speeding ahead. I don't really. You know, I'm sort of a workaholic. You know, I do what you do. I like going to work.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
The truth is, people that take vacations take them because, in general, the jobs they do are work.
Yeah.
In general, the jobs I do, I would do for free.
Yeah.
So the vacation for me is going to work. I love sets.
Yeah.
You know, I don't stay in trailers. You know, when you go on sets, everybody has the fight over trailers and stuff.
Right,
and I said, I grew up in Kentucky. You know, we try to stay out of trailers.
Trailers not exactly where I want to go.
It's not a status symbol for us.
No, exactly. No. Same thing about North Carolina.
Yeah.
Let me go back to Kentucky for you. How did you get this acting bug?
I don't know. Well, it was the summer. It was my third year in college, and I think I was still a freshman. Wasn't very good at
Drinking and having a good time.
Yeah,
right?
I was away from home for the first time. Are you kidding?
Chasing co-eds and drinking.
Exactly. Yeah. And then
get around to studying later.
Exactly. Well, study. That's not important. I mean, I remember blowing off midterms once, which ends your entire semester because all my friends were leaving for spring break to go down to Florida, driving down, and I wanted to go with them, and I just went, "Oh, the hell with the exams." I just lost the whole semester, so I wanted to go down there.
But a little thing like that, standing in the way of a good time.
You're going to Florida.
Hey,
come on. So I'm
only 19 once.
I know. Yeah. And I tried to be, 21 and 22 while I was 19.
And then when you were 22, 24, you would say, I'm only 19 once.
Seemed to work out. I had the liver of a 50-year-old. Yeah. So I went to, my cousin Miguel Ferrer, who is an actor, and his father Jose Ferrer, who was a wonderful actor.
Wonderful actor.
Came to Kentucky, to Lexington, Kentucky, which is a couple hours away from where I lived, to do a movie. I didn't know him. I knew him like every family reunion or something. I'd see him. I was always very excited by them. They were the California relatives.
Yeah, right.
Very sort of seductive about that. And I was very impressed. And I was cutting tobacco for a living for the summer because that's how, at the end of the summer, because that's how you make your living. You can sock away some cash. And I went down to Lexington, Kentucky to see Miguel.
University town.
In a university town. And he got me a speaking role in the film, a tiny role in the film. And I stuck around there for about 3 months, hanging out on sets and things. And then at the end of it, Miguel was going back to Los Angeles. He said, come out to L.A. and be an actor. And, I didn't really have any responsibilities at home at all. And I thought, what the hell? So I did it. I mean, ignorance is pure bliss. Had I thought over all of the how long and how difficult a road it would be and how lucky you have to get along that road. It's a combination of so many things. Absolutely timing. Certainly you have to have some talent. Certainly you have to have a lot of drive, but you also have to have an incredible amount of luck, true luck. So had I thought about all those things, I would never have done it.
Been too tall a hill to climb.
You just wouldn't do it. You just look over and go, wow. No,
because you don't know anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know anybody who's an actor if you grew up in Kentucky.
No, you don't.
I mean, your relatives...
acting isn't even an option.
Yeah, I know.
My father had a variety show before he was doing the news. It was live, and we would go do the show. I'd play characters on the show and things, but you weren't an actor. It was a broadcaster.
Yeah, right, right. And your dad still, as everybody knows, lives well and hosts.
Yes, well, he was hosting the AMC Movie Channel. He's finished with that now. He's now he's doing a radio show in Cincinnati, Ohio, and he writes an article for the paper.
Did you think about journalism ever?
I studied it in school, and I tried a couple of cracks at it. Yeah. And the truth is, at that point, my father was an anchorman, and it was on ABC, and it was the number one news. He wrote all his own news. He grew up of the Edward R. Murrow world. He grew up in your world where you write what you say.
Not another face man.
Yeah. And so it was before sort of the world had changed over, where you decided that news was no longer the lost leader and that you could actually make money by making it entertaining and making money off of it. So it was really still journalism, and my father was really respected. And I tried doing some of it, and the truth is I wasn't nearly bright enough. And I think I would have gotten, and I was getting my foot in the door much quicker than anyone else my age would have, but the expectation was much higher then. Yeah. And the truth is I was nowhere near what my dad was.
And the relationship with your mother?
Mm-hmm. She was, my mom was first runner-up in the Miss Kentucky pageant. My dad was emceeing the Miss Kentucky pageant.
Oh, my God, no.
Oh, yeah, and asked her to marry him. They got married 3 months later. Isn't that funny? Insane. So,
did she want you to be an actor?
No, neither of them wanted me to be an actor. We're adamantly opposed to me being an actor.
Because they didn't want you to suffer rejection, pain, whatever.
They know Rosemary, and Rosemary wasn't really an actress. She acted in a couple of movies.
It's his sister.
It's his sister.
Yeah.
But she was in Hollywood in that sort of world, and saw what happened to her.
When she was 24, rock and roll came in, and she was out.
It changed. Yeah, the music changed. Before that, in 1950, 9 of the top 10 singers were women. And popular music was it.
So you go out to California and you sleep in her guest house.
Yeah.
Is she thrilled about this or not?
For a while I think she was. I think I wore out my welcome pretty quick.
Yeah.
As any 21-year-old idiot would. And I did that. And then I moved into a buddy of mine. I made a friend of mine named Tom Matthews. And Tom and I were friends from acting class. And I ended up staying in his one-bedroom apartment with his grandmother and sleeping on the closet floor. That was really fun, actually. Great time.
To read all these magazines, of which I've read some of them, what comes through is the bonds of those years with the friends you have, and that those people are the fabric of your life today. Even they're buddies, they're friends, they're people who you know are there and who knew you when the only thing that mattered was the nature of our relationship, right?
Right.
You play basketball. You get together for meals
every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
And there's something
we can still move on the court.
Yeah, I still got a little move. Still got a left and a right.
There you go. Yeah.
But it's funny. I was just at this premiere in Los Angeles, big Hollywood premiere, and they give you a few tickets, and you can bring who you want. And I look down the row, and there's the same 8 guys that we've been together and done all of this together for 20 years now. Same 8 guys. Yeah. And their wives and children and friends. And there's a real great source of pride that we can all go through the ups and downs together. There's an incredible sense of accomplishment, not about your career, but about your friendships. You want to be able to look at something really beautiful. It doesn't work if you're just looking at it by yourself.
Exactly. It says that about companions, but also a broader family. One of the great things I think about having some success is that you can do things for other people. It gives you the power. Now, you don't need that power to do things for other people.
No.
The world of people who make a sacrifice for friends who don't have power is and it's much more even extraordinary.
I think
but the great thing about having some power, some fame, is that you can do things and you can share it, and you seem to be doing that.
Well, the danger is when you get in a position that I'm in, people tend to, because you can make a lot of friends very quickly.
Yeah, I know.
And it's sort of seductive.
Hey, George, your best friend right here.
Right. And it's seductive because you get to meet people. You're walking down the red carpet, the Golden Globes, and I see James Woods, and I've never met him before, and I go, James, and he goes, George.
I know. Yeah,
and you're in this famous club.
Yeah, right.
Where
fame knows fame.
Yeah, it's just famous club, and so you can make a lot of sort of friends very quickly, and it's seductive to sort of empty out, the coffers and start all over again, and it's dangerous because you can't do that. You can't do it. I didn't really go through that period, luckily, and for that, I think I've been able to keep them around, and these are guys who did great things for me when they had no money, and when I had no money, and we're all very close because of it. We've been through great successes and huge failures together, all of us.
So you can grab the Warner's plane and just go wherever you want to go.
Every once in a while now, and that is kind of fun.
I know.
That is kind of fun, and there's times when that's, that is, and we just laugh at it, and it's the perks, and we don't get used to it, because if you get used to it, when it's taken away, you'll really miss it.
Your mom and dad both alive?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how do they feel about all this?
They laugh about it. We all laugh about it. I mean, honestly, you would laugh about it if you knew our lives and you knew what an idiot I've been. The fact that I've managed to.
But are they, in the end, surprised, or do you think they knew that there was whatever that X factor is. They knew you had the X factor.
They're surprised. No, there was no X factor. There was a lot of luck.
There was, there's no sense we knew he was going to do it.
Oh, no.
Our boy was another Olivier, and we knew it from the beginning. He had that thing.
Yeah, no. I mean, they loved
Our son's going out to L.A., and he's going to come back with his head between his...
He's going to come back. Our son's going to go out, and he's going to end up like being a drug dealer.
Yeah.
No, they loved
stay
me.
out of jail, son, for God's sake.
They
don't go to
trusted me,
jail.
but they didn't. I don't think. Well, none of us really thought. I didn't go out and think I was ever going to be able to.
You just thought, what? I'm going to try this. I'm going to see what happens.
You know what I thought? I thought I didn't want to wake up at 65 years old and go, what if? It's the worst thing in the world. It really is. I mean, the only failure I know is not giving something a run. It's why I do. It's why now I'm in the position to get things done, movies made, like why I really fought to get Three Kings made, and why it was sort of a long fight to get Out of Sight made. They were good films, and they're not the kind of films that studios necessarily make, because they're not easy to recoup their money. It's why we did Fail Safe, which was the scariest thing I've ever done in a career.
And did well in the ratings, I think.
It did well, yeah. We brought CBS up 70% from the week before, so that's
good.
That's good.
I think.
We got beat by Millionaire, but
Well, no, join the club.
Well, it's funny because Millionaire is this big juggernaut now, and people are going, oh, Millionaire, and I said, well, I've been on one of those juggernauts. I know what it's like to have the one that.
ER was exactly that.
Yeah, it was the thing that you came home and that people talked about the next day, which.
Yeah, but who's got it now? Is Les Moonves has got it with Survivor.
I know, I saw that. Isn't that a crack up? Yeah,
isn't it amazing where you have something come along and just smack you against the head, which is what happened to CBS and to NBC.
That's right.
Because of what happened. All of a sudden, it's not Millionaire Monday. It's Millionaire Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
but
whenever it's on.
ABC paints themselves in a corner with that if they're not careful, because what they do is they don't take in pilots, and they don't develop as much. Because they've got this thing, and they know it's cheating in a way. Yeah. I love it, and it's fun, but it isn't programming ultimately. And ultimately, when someone gets tired of it, which we always get tired of everything.
4 places go.
Everything just, and when it goes so quickly. And I've been on it when shows go.
Yeah, but not with ER. I mean, was ER the thing that made it for you?
Sure, without any question, ER was it.
And here's the story. The story is that somebody slipped your script.
Right.
Slipped your script, whatever that means.
Absolutely.
They mailed it to you, they dropped it by.
Every day I would
put
go
it under the door.
I was over at Warner Brothers. I was under contract, and I would go over, and this man John Levy said, "I got a script here. You can take a look at it."
Now, who is John Levy?
He's one of the heads of casting over at Warner Brothers.
So he said, "Think about this," or
no? He said, "I got this one." Now, when you're under contract, basically what it means is you can greenlight a pilot. You can get a pilot made, which means you're at the position where you're not reading for projects anymore. You're not auditioning anymore. But this was a big one. This was Steven Spielberg and Michael Crichton and John Wells. And
it doesn't get any bigger.
It doesn't get any bigger. And they said, look, I'll let you see this one, but they're never going to give this to you. They don't think you're right for it. You'd have to read for it. And they felt it was insulting to come to me to say, read for it. And I said, I'll read.
Read?
I'll read.
Where's the script?
I'll come in and read tomorrow, because you want them to want you one way or the other.
Well, I mean, as I remember reading about this, you basically said to him, "I'm the only guy that's right for this. Do not test anybody else. Do not audition anybody else. I'm your guy."
I was the first guy to get a job on the show.
Is that right? You got the first one?
Yeah, it was the first. It was before they really started casting. I went into John Wells and I closed the door, and we were developing a comedy pilot together, talking about a comedy pilot together. And I closed the door and I said, "Let me read." He said, "All right," and he brought in the director, and I read for him, and he goes, "Great," and I go, "I'm the guy for this job. You know that. I'm the guy for this job. Yeah. Don't see anybody else on the job." He gave me the job.
Did you feel that way because you believed that you were the guy for the job, or because you believed that this would be a great opportunity? In other words, was this character so interesting to you, or was it just, I want on this ship before it leaves port?
Well, there were two things. One is I knew that with Spielberg and Crichton and all of that going for it, the chances of it getting picked up were very slim at the time because of the subject matter. But to me, it would have been a 2-hour movie of the week working with those people, and that seemed like.
And they'd see you.
And it was a classy project. Yeah. Also, I looked at it and I said, I play a guy in the opening pilot. Didn't have many scenes. I didn't have to carry the bulk of the work, which my character never really had to do. But I was sort of a womanizer, and I was an alcoholic. Opening scene, I'm drunk and getting an IV.
You're playing out of character here.
Playing out of character, exactly. And I did all of these kind of rotten things all the way through, and at the end, I stick up for a little kid. And the result of which, when you read it, is you go, that guy's a good guy. Because if you stick up for a kid, your character can pretty much get away with anything if you ultimately stick up for a kid.
What do you want people in all these roles to think about you as an actor?
I don't want them to think about me as an actor, if that's sort of funny. I don't... heroes of mine growing up were Spencer Tracy.
I thought so.
He's my hero. I mean, you watch him and you can't take your eye off of him.
And you can't see any acting.
You don't. Yeah, I mean, his line was "Never let him catch you acting," and it's true. You watch him, you just go, "I don't see it." He is. You just think he's the guy, and he never really did accents, and he was just the guy, and that's what you aspire to. You won't ever reach it. I won't ever be Spencer Tracy.
But is that part of the reason you did not want to do a Boston accent for Perfect Storm?
It was part of it. You know, the truth is, we all worked on it for a while. And we listened to ourselves. And I'm pretty good. I'm a pretty good mimic at things, so I can do it pretty well. Boston accents are the toughest accent there is. Truly the toughest. That in Chicago, because, you know, Chicago's got that, and, you know, it's tough. And even when you hear people do it from there, it doesn't really sound real. You know, there's something sort of superficial, or not superficial, something strange about the accent. Yeah. It's alien to any other area. When you hear someone from Boston, you know exactly, you know specifically where they're from. Unless you could do it incredibly well, first of all, you shouldn't do it.
Right.
And secondly, I'm pretty recognizable, really recognizable. And the truth is, if I started off doing an accent like that,
they would say he's acting.
And they'd spend the first 15 minutes, if I did it great, and probably I wouldn't have. I think personally, I think I could have, but let's say for sake of argument, I wouldn't have. They'd spend 15 minutes getting over the accent. And then I thought, and I remember listening to Sidney Pollack talk about Robert Redford doing an English accent in the English, not the English Patient, in Out of Africa.
Right.
He said they shot for a while. He said he did a perfectly good English accent, and he watched it and he said, "You're thrown." And now I'm not comparing myself to Robert Redford, but when you're well known, and you know, there was always sort of two schools. There was Spencer Tracy, who was always Spencer Tracy in movies. There was Laurence Olivier, who was always a chameleon.
Everybody else, yeah.
And but people didn't. By the way, people didn't know and recognize Laurence Olivier like they did Spencer Tracy. Not that you glory in that, just that that's the facts. And the facts are, I'm famous from television, not famous from films. And when you're famous from television, you're in many ways much more famous than you are. You know, when you're famous in films, you're 60 feet tall, and people have paid $8, and they've spent made an evening of it to come see you, and it's, you know, you're out there, and they're this persona that's bigger than life. I'm famous from the most successful television show, arguably in history, if you think about a 40 share with 150 channels, you know, and I'm this big on your TV screen. And you could make me talk or not talk if you didn't want to. If you were angry with me, you'd turn me off.
And you're in the living room.
And I'm in your living room, and or your bedroom, and they can watch you in their, you know, in their underwear, and they know you personally. It's not bad. It just means that it is it's personal, and they didn't make an event to go see you.
Do you think you could last on television if people didn't like you?
No.
I don't think so either.
Even the unlikable characters were really likable. Danny DeVito's character in Taxi was Louis was the hated guy.
There's a redeeming value of some kind.
But you loved him.
Yeah.
You know, and because there would always be 1 in 5 shows where he'd show a little heart.
You stayed with it for 5 years. You stuck to your contract. I mean, that come from your father or from your family? Just said if you take a job, you keep to the contract. You make a deal, you do the deal.
Well, it was funny. You know, I was making really good money in films.
Yes.
And so the argument immediately after the first film came out, when we were doing ER and it opened pretty well, was, okay, that's it, you're gone.
And you've got to remember that you wanted to be a film actor. That was what the goal was.
Well, sure. Every actor really does. And Caruso had left the year before after 1 year. So it became David Caruso. So it became sort of the... It was this passion of people's discussions. Everyone was talking about, you know, well, he'll leave. But the truth of the matter is, and my dad and I were talking about night before last on the phone, and I said, it's funny, but, you know, people were sort of making a big deal about the fact that I did what I was supposed to do. Yeah. I didn't do anything out of the ordinary. I didn't do anything spectacularly great. I just did what I was supposed to do, which was I honored my contract. I didn't renegotiate. Yeah. I was the lowest paid actor on the show by far, which was always kind of fun to say. I was making a good living in films.
It amazes me because that, you know, this is a very different context, but a lot of the people Tom Brokaw and others have introduced us to in World War II, you know, who never really talked about it very much. They said, well, I just did what I was supposed to do. It was my job to do this, and I did what I was supposed to do.
Right.
You know?
Well, that's, the difference is mine is the dangers are career and life
I
is a
understand,
whole
but it
other
is the
world.
idea of people doing it.
Yeah.
Except, I mean, this is what I'm supposed to do. I mean, this is the way it is. You're supposed to get up and go to work at 9 o'clock and leave at 5, whatever.
Right.
I want to take a look at first Three Kings. It took something from you to get the movie made.
It took a lot, yeah.
What was the problem?
Well,
why can't they see that?
Because it's a Gulf War drama, black comedy, action film that no one could put their finger on. Studios, it's been a while since they really made films like these. You know, they used to make All the President's Men, and they used to make you know, Bonnie and Clyde.
Right.
But they'd gotten into somewhat of a formula.
Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to into the actual genre, yeah. But they hadn't made them in a while, films like that. They were starting to in the last couple of years. Out of Sight at Universal was like that. But in general, there was, you know, things were sort of factory put together. This last year I thought was a great year because there was much more of you felt where independent films and foreign films are starting to finally bleed through into the studio system again and make them tell stories again, tell real stories. It's script driven again. This one was pretty far reaching. This one was asking a lot. It's not a cheap film to make. It's not an expensive film, but it's not cheap.
But it was made because you, at least in part, because you pushed for it and you're willing to go down the line and say...
Well, the reason it was made is, you know, it was well written.
Right.
Lorenzo, the man who now runs the studio, believed in it, very much believed in it. There were other people there that had real problems with it, and so they tried to pull the plug. And who were above Lorenzo, and I had a deal for a lot of money to make the film, to make any film over there at Warner Brothers, and I took all the money out and put it back into the film, and then you could get anything you want made. If you take out, quite honestly, if you take you know, a $10 million deal and you say, well, let's do it for, you know, a lot less, and we'll put that back in the film, and we'll take a back end on the film, and if the movie makes money, I'll make money. You gamble on yourself. You can get a lot of films made.
Could you really? I mean, if more people would do that.
I do it a lot.
You do.
I do it. I've done it. I just did it with the Coen Brothers film. Yeah.
Did you do that with Out of Sight?
Out of Sight? No, I was paid. I was paid. I didn't have the same kind of deal for money. You know.
But partly because of Out of Sight, you had the option to do Three Kings.
That's right.
Yeah. Roll tape.
Bush told the people to rise up against Saddam. They thought they'd have our support. They don't. Now they're getting slaughtered.
So where's the next bunker?
Well, 20 clicks on the map, according to what that guy said.
Let me go back to Out of Sight. Was that movie about the magic of a relationship between a guy and a girl?
Just plain old romantic comedy in a way. Plain old, easy, smart storytelling. Elmore Leonard is a brilliant book writer, and there have only been a couple of films made that captured characters, which is what he writes. The stories aren't nearly as important as a character.
Out of that movie came this sort of line. Every actor wants to be the next Cary Grant. Maybe George can be.
Well, Cary Grant is rolling over in his grave right now, don't you think?
No, I don't think so. But
you'd
say that anyway because that's kind of self-deprecating the way you are. You thought the thought. You have thought the thought.
No, because it's not. It's not what I am. I mean, he was so much more charming and debonair.
But the point is not to be Cary Grant, but to be, you know, an actor who has a certain elan, but who can.
I don't know. You know, I just like good scripts.
Yeah.
It is the funniest thing. I'd play anything as long as there's a good script.
There's no connection between Out of Sight and Perfect Storm, is there?
None.
None. Roll tape. Jennifer Lopez, you two had chemistry?
Oh, yeah, I liked working with her.
You liked her?
She's a great girl.
You really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, roll tape. I don't have any reason.
Let's get out of here.
Let me just, I got a couple points. I know that we're out of time, and this has been a great hour for me. all of this stuff?
I brought them. I travel
Here's
with
the
those,
latest one I've seen. You travel with these. It's nice of you to bring these in.
Yeah,
to show me what a big deal you were.
I have a bag. I just bring them out and flip them on.
How about this? Men of the Year.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, this is a little old, I think. This is October sometime. You know?
Yeah, that was a while.
But it goes on and on and on. Somebody said about you, you're the kind of guy that women want to get in bed with and men want to go play basketball with.
Because it's better than the other way around.
Yeah, that's right. You're better than that. I'd like to play basketball with him, but yeah. No. I mean, what's all that about?
Those, you know, you can't really control what people think or say about you, and what happens is you sort of just have to say thank you when they say nice things about you.
And enjoy it.
And enjoy it.
And not take it seriously.
And because the truth is, as you know, sitting here with you, there's no good way to answer a question like that. Yeah. Because if you say yes, you sound like an egomaniac.
And I didn't ask it in the context. It was a sober question.
No, and I know, but I'm saying that you always end up sort of sounding like an idiot if you any way you answer it. So you just sort of have to just say, well, it's nice while it lasts, and if people think that, that's great.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that don't, and I'll find them and egg their
and
houses.
I'll be just fine. The best time of your life, it's got to be.
It's a good time for me right now.
I mean, you're not with anyone as far as I read, but that'll work itself out, right?
It'll work itself out.
Yeah.
Yeah, always does.
Does that mean that you are just driven by this work because it's your time, because you love what you're doing, and you have opportunity, and if you don't focus on it now, never?
Well, I think so. I think you get windows of opportunity in your career, and you know, I'm in a position right now where I get to do really good projects, and I get to decide. I don't know if that'll be true for a very long period of time. It doesn't, certainly, if you look at the history of actors, it doesn't last very long. Yeah. So I thought, why not, while I have this thing, it was partially why we did Failsafe again, was because I could sort of say to the network, okay, I make a lot of money when I do a movie, and I'm not going to do a movie of the week or any television right now. So I'll do it for nothing, which I did it for. I'll act in it if you let me do it live and in black and white and letterboxed. And Les, who's my friend, said, well, if you're in it, okay.
The great Les Moonves, yeah.
He's a great guy. So it was a little give and take. Now, I don't know 2 or 3 years from now if I'll have that ability. So it seemed like the right time to sort of try being the 800-pound gorilla and get stuff done that wouldn't ordinarily get done.
You look for good scripts. You look to work with people you admire.
Sure.
Directors that you think have real talent and get them. How do you see about growing in the craft? How do you does that just happen?
I think it's like, I think it's like almost any, pretty much any skill at all.
If I sit here at this table every night, I ought to get better, or else I ought to...
Yeah, don't you think?
Or else I ought to go
Or
down.
you better quit.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you better quit. Because, get out of here, which I'm taking over. Well, it's weird, you don't have there is no, a good script makes you a better actor, always,
right.
Always.
Good director makes you better.
Always. Great actors to work with make you better. All of those things are important parts of it. I used to make fun of people and things. I used to laugh at people. I'd see them on a soap or something.
Yeah.
I stopped all of that. I'd sit there and try and say some of the lines that they have to say on a soap, and you go, man.
It's not easy.
Oh, my God.
To make that sound real. It's not like Shakespeare.
No, it isn't.
Or whoever.
So you realize that a good performance is dependent on so many things.
I'm out of time only because you have other things to do.
Yes, I have to go. I've had it with you. I'm going out to buy a blue tie.
You're not spending one more second with me on this show. Thank you.
Thanks.
Very much.
It was fun.
I enjoyed it. The movie Perfect Storm opens nationwide this Friday, June 30th. George Clooney, a lot of other interesting actors in the story, first written in the book by Sebastian Junger. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.